Fertility experts in East Tennessee are putting an emphasis on safely storing embryos, this coming after malfunctions at clinics in Ohio and California. At the Ohio clinic alone, some 2,100 eggs and embryos could be compromised. 10 News reporter Shannon Smith talked with the National Embryo Donation Center in Farragut, and Shannon, they say this is rare.
Well, John, that's because those embryos and eggs have to be stored at a very cold temperature, negative 196 degrees Celsius, in a tank cooled by liquid nitrogen. It's extremely uncommon for that temperature to change on its own.
People from across the United States have their embryos stored at the National Embryo Donation Center in Farragut.
The actual numbers of eggs and embryos is probably into the several thousand.
While using frozen embryos to get pregnant is always a risk, most couples don't worry about their samples accidentally thawing.
It's very rare that something like this happens.
It did happen at fertility clinics in Ohio and California. Jeffrey Keenan is the medical director at the Farragut Center, and he says his staff takes every step possible to avoid mishaps. They closely monitor the special storage tanks where the embryos are held.
We do a daily visual inspection of the exterior of the tank and the level. We do a weekly measurement.
That's to make sure no liquid nitrogen is leaking out or warming up. And if something happens when no one is at the office,
an electronic monitoring system coordinated with something called a sensophone, so that if the level goes low in a tank, an alarm will sound. That sensophone dedicated phone will call one of us.
Even a slight rise in temperature can negatively impact the embryos. Still, the center requires patients to sign a consent form, acknowledging that while uncommon, embryos could be compromised because of equipment malfunction.
There are a lot of safeguards, but that in any type of assisted reproduction, there are just no guarantees.
And Keenan says the tanks at the Farragut Clinic have never had any problems and that most embryo storage tanks never do.